Good afternoon, my name is Michelle Jutrissa and I'm an independent demonstrator with Stamping Up in the Southern Highlands of New South Wales. The card I'm going to show you today is a slider card. It's a triple slider card, so you keep pulling the card out and it pulls all the way out. So let me just close this up again and let's get started. So there's two stamp sets I'm using today. Is Surprise Peony, and I'm pairing it with the Peaceful Moments sentiments. And on this card I'm using Congratulations, and these are the moments we'll look back on with joy. So these are the stamp sets. Now I have done all the stamping for us, so then it doesn't take as long. Okay, so let me just remove those from the table. And this is the list of what we need. I hope you can see that. I will post this onto my blog. Now C1 and C2, the difference in that is the C1 is what the base card, what our card is made out of. So in this case, the card is actually in grey granite. And C2 is the matting, and I have used Blushing Bride for the matte on this card. Okay, so in our grey granite, what we need is two pieces of cardstock that are going to form the main part of our card. So we've got one piece here, which is 29.8 centimetres in length. Now that's the length of an A4 piece of cardstock, and I've cut it down to a width of 14.9 centimetres. Now our second piece of cardstock has got a width of 11.5 centimetres and it's 26.7 centimetres in length. Then we need, so that's going to form our base of our card, so that's going to form this portion of our card, and then pop that part back in, then this inner section of our card, which is the middle part, and then we need a piece for this top part here. So that piece is 7.5 centimetres by 11.4 centimetres. We also need a scrap to cut out a circle. Now that circle, you can cut that out using one of the die cuts, the layering circles, and it's the one which is around about 4 centimetres in diameter, or you can use 1.5 inch punch. Okay, so that's what we need in our grey granite, or whatever cardstock that you're going to use as your base. Then our matting, as I said, I've used Blushing Bride, which is the C2, and we need two pieces for that. So we need one piece which is 9.5 centimetres by 14.4 centimetres, and another piece which is 8.3 by 11 centimetres. We also need some Whisper White. Okay, now in our Whisper White we need three pieces. We need one which is 8 centimetres by 10.7, and we need another piece which is 7 centimetres by 10.9, and then you need a circle just to go onto the front of your card, just like what I have used here on the front of my card. So I've just cut out not the largest circle out of the layering dies, but the second largest one for that. You also needed some designer series paper, so I'm using the coordinating designer series paper that coordinates with the Peony stamp set. And this piece is 9.2 by 14.1 centimetres. And then we just need two strips. Now it doesn't have to be the same designer series paper, it can be a scrap because these aren't going to be seen, but you are better off using designer series paper because they are a lot lighter rather than using the cardstock. And they're approximately 1.5 centimetres wide strip, and just a couple of lengths strip lengths around about 10 centimetres or more, because we can trim them back. Okay, so let me just put all of this to one side and our measurements, and we're going to concentrate on these two pieces of our cardstock. So I'm just going to actually take this out again a little bit. Okay, I hope you can see that. Okay, so we're going to start off with our larger piece, the bottom part of our card. So we need on this to score this. So just bring in my other sheet of measurements. So I've actually named these two pieces A and B, just so then we can differentiate which one we're talking about. And we're going to work on A to start with. Now for A, we need to score it at 9.8 centimetres. So I'm going to bring in my trimmer. We're going to slip this in with our length, our width of our cardstock, our A4 width of our cardstock, right at the very top of our trimmer. Bring that down so you can actually see. And we're going to put that at 9.8 centimetres. So 9, 5, 6, 7, 8. Move our cutting blade right out of the road because we're not cutting, we're only scoring. So we're using the light grey scoring blade. And we're going to score down on that a couple of times. Okay, so let's just take that out now. So we've got our score line there. And what we are going to do is we're going to fold in. So I've got the mountain of my score line just on the inside, and I'm going to fold this card in and burnish it down. Now we need to make a second fold because we're actually making a tube. Okay, so we need to fold this side in. So the easiest way to do that is to take this edge, okay, so our right edge, and we're going to take that into that score line. Okay, so I'm just going to fold that up so you can see where the score line is. Now I did try to score this line here, but it meant that I was out still a fraction. So this actually gives you more of an even fold. So we're going to take that right into that score line and press along that fold, and then I'm just going to burnish that with my bone folder. Okay, so now we've got like a tri-fold card. So your right hand side is going to fold in, and this is the side we're going to have our sliding mechanism on. And then the left side folds over the top, and this left side is going to become our back. Okay, because we've got this join, or this where it's going to join up there is at our back. So what I'm going to do is grab myself a pencil, and because I know this is going to get covered, I'm going to put an F on there for front. So I know that that is the front of my card and that is the back of my card. So we're going to do the same thing with our piece number B, or letter B, but our score line is going to be slightly different. So for B, our score line is going to be at 8.9 centimetres. Okay, so we're going to measure this time 8.9, which if you like your inches, that is about 3.5 inches. Drop down our ruler and score that. So take that out of there. I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I'm going to flip it over so my mountain of my score line is on the inside, and I'm going to fold that over and burnish my score line there. I'm going to take the right side of my cardstock and I'm going to fold it into that score line, or that fold. Press it down and then again burnish it down, giving me a nice crisp fold line. Okay, so now we've got again our back, so I'm going to put another F on there for front. So that just reminds me that that's my front. Okay, so again it's a three-fold card. We've got our back and we've got our front. Now we need to make up our mechanisms. So we're still working on both A and B. So I'm just going to pop an A here so we know that's A and that's B. Okay, so we're going to work on our A again. So this is the part, because this is the one that we actually scored. This is the side we folded, and this is going to become our mechanism. So to make our mechanism, what we have to do is make two slits going down here. Now the slits need to be 2.5 centimetres in from the edges. So it's 2.5 centimetres in from this cut edge, and 2.5 centimeters in from this folded edge here. So I'm going to bring my trimmer in again. I'm going to turn it around this way because I need to look at two measurements. Sorry. I'm going to be looking at the measurement here for 2.5 centimeters, but I'm also going to be looking at the measurements on my ruler. Now my ruler is in inches, so I am going to give you those measurements there in both inches and centimeters, but I'll be looking at the inches. So we're going to take our cardstock, lift up our ruler, again take this right up to the very top so it's sitting in there nice and close to the top of your scoring, and then we're going to put this edge here, the right hand side edge, onto 2.5 centimeters. So my slit length needs to be 2.5 centimeters at the top, because this is our top of our card, or 2 centimeters from the top of our card, or 3/4 of an inch, and we've got to cut it down to 11.5 centimeters, or 4.5 inches. Remember, we're coming in 2.5 centimeters or 1 inch from the side, but we're going to start our cutting at 3/4 of an inch or 2 centimeters from the top, and we're going to finish at 4.5 inches or 11.5 centimeters. So I'm going to take my blade, lift up my ruler, and on the middle of your blade you've got, on the side here, you've got a little line. So I'm going to line that up with my 3/4 of an inch, which is just about there. Push my blade down, and that will just start the cutting process, and I'm going to cut this down to 4.5 inches, which is just about there on my ruler. So just very gently move that down 4.5 inches to that point. Lift this up, and there's my first slit done. Now we need to cut, as I said before, another slit, and again 2.5 centimeters from this folded edge. So with the first one, we actually lined it up with 2.5 centimeters on the right side of our cutting blade. Now we're going to line this folded edge with the left side of our cutting blade. So we're going to be looking at that 2.5 centimeter mark, which just happens to be 1 inch. So down here I can see there's my 2.5 centimeters, which also lines up with the 1 inch. So I'm going to pop that into there, flip down my, line that up again, making sure that stays there nice and firmly. Take my blade back up the top. Now I haven't put my ruler down, I've just got my finger underneath it. I don't know whether you can see that. I'm going to line up my blade with 3/4 of an inch again, go down and take that back down to 4.5 inches or 11.5 centimeters. So that has now given us two, I'll just grab these pieces here, two slits. And what we are going to do, because remember that's the top of our card up here, we're going to take one of these pieces of strips of designer series paper that we had, and we're going to go do a bit of weaving. We're going to go underneath, through the slit, over the top, and then underneath again, and that's going to form our mechanism which allows this card to slide. So I'm just going to pop that to one side, and we're going to do exactly the same thing with our middle section of our card. So again, we're going to line this up at 2.5 centimeters on the right side of your cutting blade, but this time we're going to cut from 3 centimeters, which is 1 1/8 of an inch, down to 10 centimeters or 4 inches. So I need to take this to 1 1/8. So that's 2 notches, 2 little notches. If you look at an inch is divided in half to 1/2 inch. Then you have quarters, then you have eighths, and then they go down to 1/16. Okay, so we're going to be lining that up with 1 1/8, which is actually 1 2/16, or 1 2 of those little notches. Okay, so I'm going to line that up, Put our ruler down, and this time we're going to go to 4 inches. So we're 4, so again 1 1/8, and we're going to cut down to that 4-inch mark. Okay, lift up our ruler, and again we're going to take our left hand side or our score line, line that up again with the 2.5 centimeters or the 1-inch mark. Put our ruler down, take our cutting blade back up the top again to 1 1/8 of an inch. Whoops, mine's just out a little bit, 1 1/8, and cut down to that 4-inch mark. Okay, so let's keep that scoring blade out of the road. So we've gone from 1 1/8 down to 4 inches. So again, we've got 2 slots. So we're going to grab our second piece of designer series paper, and we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to go, so here's the top of our card. We've got that 3 centimeter coming down, or 1 1/8 of an inch coming down from the top. So I'm going to go underneath, through the slit and over the top, and underneath again. So let me just remove our trimmer because we're finished with that now. Let's go back to this large one again. So we've got our designer series paper underneath or woven through our 2 slits. We're going to flip that over, and we're just going to make sure that that's taken right to the bottom of your slit, and we're going to fold this in. Now you don't want to fold it in too tight, but don't make it too loose either. So we're going to fold that side in, and we're going to fold this side in. We're not going to stick anything down, we're just going to trim that back a bit. Okay, so just remove that extra hang, and that's just going to allow that to move up and down. Okay, so we've done that to that one, and then we're going to do the same thing with our section B. So take it right down to the bottom, fold in one side, not too tight, fold in the second side, and just trim that back a little bit. Just so then they're just about touching, or they don't even, don't want to make them too short, but you don't want to have them too long either. Okay, so that's our mechanism all done. So now we're going to start putting the rest of our card together. Now I have already done the stamping, and the stamping that I have done, so let me just bring all these other pieces in for you. I have stamped the full peony, and I've stamped that in the grey granite. I'm about to say smoky slate. So I've stamped that in the grey granite. Okay, then I have, so that one there is the piece which is 8 by 10.7, which is going to be go in the centre part. Then I've stamped this piece here, so I've stamped my peony again in my grey granite, but over the top in Memento Black I've stamped one of my sentiments. These are the moments we'll look back on with joy. And then I've also done my circle as well. So again, I've just stamped the peony, and because I've put the peony onto the right hand side of this piece here, I've decided to put the peony on the left hand side to go on the front of my card with congratulations just underneath. Okay, I hope you can see all of that. So we're going to take this piece of our grey granite, and we now need our circle of grey granite. We're going to fold our circle in half because we need to make a pull. So what I've done is I've just folded that in half, grab my bone folder. Now I'm going to use here the new Stamp and Seal Plus because it's got that extra strength, get my words out, extra strength for anything that needs to have good firmness to. And take the cap off, just make sure we don't lose that. And I'm going to put a bit of the adhesive on each side of my folded line of my circle. I'm then going to take my smaller piece of grey granite and line it up, keep making sure this edge is in line with the folded edge of my circle, and I want to have that as closely even in the middle as possible. Leave a bit of a gap, I don't know whether you can see that there, and then we're just going to fold that down, and that's going to make our pull. So that's going to be this top part of our card there. Okay, so we're going to adhere this little piece onto the top of that. Now before we adhere this, I want to put some petal pink ink around my edges. If I can open up my stamp pad. And I have a sponge. And I'm just going to very carefully just sponge around. I only need to sponge 3 sides, and I don't even need to go down the full length of this side, because a portion of this, and that's the thing I need to mention too, when I stamped these images, I'm stamping them up the top. Don't stamp them in the middle, because most of this is going to get covered up. Okay, so we're stamping them up the top, so you've got a lot of blank area down here, and that's fine, that's okay. So we're just going to go very quickly around our edges of our card, just to give it a nice soft pink look to it. We could do that with all 3 pieces. Again, with this one here, I've stamped more to the top because this portion down here is going to get covered up, and I'm just going around 3 sides of my Whisper White cardstock. And while we're doing that, we might as well grab our circle, our Whisper White circle, and just go around the edge of that as well. Just adding a little bit of softness to the edge of our cardstock, just like that. So that's all that sponging now has been completed. Now here you could either use your Seal Plus or you can use your multi-purpose liquid glue. I'm going to use my multi-purpose liquid glue, and I'm going to take this, add some glue to the back of it. Don't glob it up like I've just done. Make sure it's sort of evenly on. The great thing about using the multi-purpose liquid glue, you do have a little bit of time to move this in position because you have got a bit of slip. So we're just going to pop that in place and let that one dry. We're then going to get our 2 Blushing Bride mats, and we're going to mount our peony flower onto the smaller one. So again with the same thing with your multi-purpose glue. Line that up, just giving you a couple of millimeters around the edges. As I said, you've just got that little bit of time there to get it all to slip in nicely. So that one's now done. And then we have our designer series paper, which is going to be matted onto the last one because that's going to be the front of our card. Again, just allowing that slip that you have with the glue just to move that into place where you want it to be. Okay, make sure that's all down. Let's pop my lid back on my glue so that the nib doesn't dry out. Okay, so there we have all those pieces ready to go. So now we're ready to put our card together. So we're going to pop these bits to one side. We're going to grab our middle piece, our part B, okay? And what we're going to do with this mechanism, this little piece of designer series paper here, I'm just going to put, now you can use your double-sided tape if you want. Actually, I will use the double-sided tape because you've got to be very careful with that, with the runner, that you don't get glue onto those slits, otherwise we're going to seal up those slits that we've made. So I'm just going to, I will use my double-sided tape, and I'm just going to pop a piece of this. Now you can put 2 pieces if you want, but I'm just going to put a piece in the middle, just burnish that down, just make sure it's stuck. Lift off that backing, and we're going to grab our smallest piece of the grey granite with our sentiment and everything on there, and we're going to attach that onto here. Now what we have to do is, there's our score line, there's our cut line. We want this piece to sit in between, but we also want it to sit a little bit above up the top. And basically what I'm trying to do is I'm actually lining up the top cut line here with the top of my Whisper White piece there. I just want it to line up a little bit. I want to have it even on either side. So I'm just going to fold that up so I can make sure it's even, and press that down where the designer series paper mechanism is at the bottom. So that's going to make our slider piece slide up and down. Once we've done that, we can fold this piece together. So we're going to fold this piece in first, because there's our mechanism. We can put another piece of double-sided tape, or you could use Seal Plus down there. Burnish that down as well, just to make sure we've got really good contact there. Lift that off, so we've make sure they're all nicely folded in, and we're going to fold this piece down. Okay, just burnish that line there just to make sure that everything has closed up. There's the front of B, excuse me, and we've got the first part of our slider done. So it's quite an easy card to put together. Just took me a little while to work out what lengths I wanted to cut those slits for things to be positioned where I want them to be. So on the front here, I'm going to attach this piece here, my peony, on here. So again, with our multi-purpose glue. So we're just building the card up now as we're putting it together. So that's going to go on there. Move it into the position where I want it. That's on the front. And we're just going to repeat the process again. So we're going to bring in now our bigger piece, piece A. We'll put some double-sided tape onto that designer series paper mechanism we've made. Peel that off. Now this time we're going to take this piece here, and what I want to do is I want to have it sitting just below, again in the middle. So there's our fold. So we want it in nice and sitting nicely in the middle. But this time I've got it sitting below, so I've just got a little bit of that tab poking out, and push that down again. Close it up, so this side goes in first. I'm going to put some more double-sided tape along here. Peel that off, and again close up our card. It does come quite a thick card, but there we go. So now we've got our mechanism on our first one and our mechanism working on our second one. So let's pop all that back inside there again, and we're going to put our designer series paper, which we've already matted, onto the front of our card. Pop that on there, slide it into position where you want that to be. Just like that. Now I needed to put a little bit of trim on here. So I've just put a little bit of ribbon on here, but I've also put a little bit of ribbon on our pull. And I've just used a staple just to staple that ribbon into place. So to start with, I've got a length of ribbon here. Now the length of this is probably around about 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, about 25 centimeters in length of ribbon, but I probably only need around about 2/3 of that. So I'm just going to cut probably around about 6 to 7 centimeters off, fold that ribbon in half. I'm going to take my circle here and I want to put some snail, well not snail, sorry, Stampin' Seal Plus on there, just to hold that ribbon in place. And I'm just going to angle it a little bit. I'm going to lift that up and put a little bit more snail just in here. No, Snail Seal Plus. I've just got to learn the new names for the new products. Okay, so our ribbon is coming out like that. In actual fact, I want to have it going the opposite direction. Or do I? No, I'm going to have it still going that way. Bit of a change. So I'm just going to trim those back and cutting it at an angle. And then we're going to grab some dimensionals. Pop a few dimensionals around your circle. Now you could decorate this in any way you please. You could add some leaves coming out from underneath, or anything that you want, just that whatever goes with. I'm going to pop one in the middle just on top of that ribbon. It's up to you really. This is just a good, quick, simple way of decorating the card, the front of the card. Okay, and this time I'm going to have my piece on that side of my card, so it's just on the opposite side a little bit to that one. And then we have our pull, so I'm just going to grab pull that out a little bit. Here's that little piece of ribbon that I kept. I'm going to fold that in half, and I'm going to actually cut another angle piece out of there. We don't need to make this too big. Pop that in the middle. And I'm just going to staple this down just twice, just to make sure I've got it all caught. If you're not sure whether you've got it all caught or not, you could go behind this and grab a glue dot just to make sure it's all nice and secure. Pop a glue dot just underneath there, push that down. Now if you wanted to, you could cut another piece of Whisper White cardstock, because there isn't really anywhere in this card to write your sentiment. And what you could do is you could cut a piece of Whisper White cardstock to fit onto the back there. You could stamp something on there, put a sentiment on there, and that could be where you write your message. But that is our card. So That's a triple sliding card. I will put this on my blog so you can refer back to it with all the measurements, so you can use those. And I hope you have a lovely day. Thank you very much. Bye for now.